our horses will know better than we do about what's good for them. I mean, in terms of skin herbs, there's quite a few others as well, but the comfrey and marigold are my go-to herbs.
And I've had a friend say to me before, Anna, trust your instincts, sometimes trust the instincts of our horses as well. How can we use plants in that way and sort of be more open-minded in our care of our equines?
Let the horse choose. We've also got a substantial tall polytunnel where we'll be growing exotic trees. We're disabled access, so we're ramped. We've got toilet and shower room that's wide enough for a wheelchair, plus we've got an off-road wheelchairs. I first was introduced to horses, beautiful equines, in my teens. There seems to be an awful lot of horses with skin conditions, so...
Well, tell us about some of those, Jane, as well, because obviously sweet itch is something very close to my own heart.
Yeah.
But what else can our horses suffer with, and what else can make our horses itchy? Are plants the answer to equine well-being? Well, ethnobotanist and entrepreneur Jane Acton grows and harvests herbs that can help people and horses. She left behind the life that she knew to live out on the land, build her growing social enterprise Common Flora, and develop her own equine skin oil for horses who suffer from chronic skin conditions. But how can we use the power of plants to help our horses? Let's jump in with Jane. Jane, welcome to the Curious Equestrian Podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're so welcome. Now, for those who are listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all the other audio podcast platforms, they won't be able to see the very fascinating background that's behind you that looks very rustic and authentic. Just tell us and describe where you're sitting right now.
Sitting in my home. It's a straw bale barn, 2 stories, and I built it with friends and a carpenter. So it's a wooden frame stuffed with straw and then covered with lime and clay. It's not finished yet, but it's functional. It's lovely, actually.
We love a work in progress.
Yes.
It looks very cosy, and we'll dive even deeper into your life living out on the land in the podcast. But first of all, before we get started, you've got to tell us, what does it mean to be, and I'm hoping I'll get the pronunciation right, of an ethnobotanist?
Well, the ethno references people, and the botanist is plant biology. And so in my case, I got a first degree in Bachelor of Science in Plant Biology, and then I did an MA in Environmental Anthropology. And so I'm really interested in the relationships between the natural world and us humans.
That sounds absolutely fascinating. What sort of hoops did you have to go through, Jane, to get all of your qualifications? What did you have to study, and did you have to go off to university?
Yes, well, the hoops were the same as anybody else doing higher education, but I was a mature student and a lone parent, so that was the most challenging, I suppose. But when I first left school, I'd done the arts, and so the first thing I had to do was bring my science skills up to date, and I did an A-level in a year, which was fantastic in biology, and they accepted me with that. I think they'd probably offer an access course these days, and with that, I then managed to get a bursary to go to Goldsmiths in London to do the environmental anthropology. But as I said, the hoops were really about the practical side. I had to move me and my daughter from Cornwall to North Wales to Bangor to do the first degree, and we lived there for 3 years, and bless her, she had to learn Welsh to go to school there. Wow. And then for me when I got offered the bursary, my family and I and Tora, my daughter, had a big powwow when it was decided that my daughter could go and live with my sister while I came up to the big smoke. I mean, I saw her every month one way or another, but either I would come home to Cornwall or she would come to London. And in the end, I didn't really I did that in a year, but I wasn't gone a whole year. We missed each other terribly, but it was very practical things rather than anything else. I mean, higher education is hard work mentally. Running a land-based project is hard work physically, but I don't regret doing it. It took a long time for me to get from the higher education and the theory and the knowledge I've got in my head to finally be doing work which is paying me and also what I actually love doing. So I guess that's been the other challenge, just making it work for me financially. So,
and Jane, tell us, where did your journey with horses begin?
Well, I was moved down by my family from the northwest of England to Cornwall as a teenager, and I knew horses around about where I lived, and obviously my friends had horses. So I first was introduced to horses, beautiful equines, in my teens, and then not a huge. I mean, I did spend some time travelling in South America, so and horses are still a big working animal in South America. So I came across a few horses and donkeys in South America. But then fast forward about 15 years ago, and I was on my transition from living in a house to living where I live now. And I stayed for a few years with a lovely family who were like an animal rescue place. They called themselves a farm, but they were mostly just rescued animals. And they had a lot of horses. And one of them did have sweet itch. So he was an Icelandic horse called Profi. And we also had a vet living on site at the time. And the vet was trying different steroid creams and things because it was really affecting Profi badly. And so we tried the oil. I mean, I've been making herbal medicines for a long time. So we tried the oil that when I'm now selling, and it worked. It didn't take very long. It was a few weeks, and I've got before and after pictures. So I thought, that's interesting. I knew it worked with human beings for different conditions, eczema and that kind of thing. But I put that in my ponder pocket, as my mum would say, and I sort of thought about that for a while. And then fast forward a bit more, and I knew I really loved donkeys, are the equines that I really have a big passion for. And so I started working at the donkey sanctuary local to me in South Devon. And so, built up my love of horses again, but equines again, and again noticed and learned about how skin conditions are a really big thing for horses in this country. 30% of horses in this country have some sort of skin condition. So I don't work as a volunteer for the Donkey Sanctuary anymore, but once I was setting up this social enterprise, it was just an obvious no-brainer, really. What's my first product going to be? It's got to be the equine skin oil. So that's where we're at now. We make this really lovely product, and we know it works, and we know it works really quickly. And so we're just at the stage of trying to reach as many horses that are suffering, as many equines that are suffering. That's the journey.
And Jane, rewind for us to the lovely Icelandic pony who was suffering with sweet itch. Now, I've got a sweet itch pony. He's a little Shetland cross New Forest called Wilson, and he's a rescue as well. And he really struggles. For anyone who doesn't know about sweet itch, it's a really harsh and cruel condition to live with if they're not looked after properly. I've been witness to it. I've had him since he was a foal. Every year it gets worse, and they will literally itch themselves, won't they, until they have broken skin, till they're bleeding, if they're not helped with soothing oils, lotions, potions, steroids, injections from the vet, fly rugs, fly masks, anything you can do to keep those flies and the fly bites away from the ponies, because it's the saliva I believe that they react to in an autoimmune way. So for those who are suffering with sweet itch ponies, we know that stress and that strain that they have to go through every year. And now it's all year because of the strange weather that we get in this country, Jane. But where do you start? So you saw this little pony suffering. How did you begin to concoct your recipe and your remedy?
Well, the plants that are used in it are the same plants that you would use for skin conditions across all mammals. So although a horse skin, of course, is much thicker than ours, it's still mammalian skin, so it's still got an epidermis, and the similar conditions for human beings as there are for equines. So sweet itch is, obviously it is an equine-based problem, but there are human similarities, human conditions that have similarities. So like eczema, really bad eczema, and psoriasis are things that are difficult conditions for a lot of people. And so the ingredients, like I said, they're tried and tested for millennia. It wasn't me who tried and tested them. We've tried and tested them for a very long time. So it was just, well, let's try this particular mix, which I'd already got for human beings with eczema. And like I say, it worked. The difference between the product then and the product now is the product now is much stronger. So it has the dried flowers and leaves are soaked for a lot longer in the oil. And there's only 3 ingredients. We're certified organic here, so that's the first thing to say. There's never been any chemicals used in the making of the product. There's only 3 ingredients, and it's marigold, comfrey, and a base of sunflower oil, which is quite a thick oil, but the oil acts as the barrier against any more insects and creates an environment that insects really don't want to get stuck on. And there's a lot of treatments for sweet itch which are based on that oil kind of idea. So that's not particularly new. I mean, none of this is new. I'm quite sure that marigold and comfrey have been used for skin conditions in equines before. Marigold in a herbal tradition, both in this country and in the northwestern Europe, has been used traditionally for skin conditions which are brought on by nervous conditions or by allergic reactions. And so marigold is your supreme soother. It just soothes the skin. If the skin's inflamed and raw and itchy, then it just instantly soothes it. And then comfrey, also known as nip bone, so you can use comfrey for bruises and for even broken bones, but it's full of collagen, and collagen is something that the skin makes as part of its own healing process.
Wow.
And so those 3 together, very simple, just very effective, nothing fancy, nothing unusual. People can make it themselves if they've got the time and inclination, and I completely recommend you do. If you know your comfrey and you know your marigold, then by all means, dry it and make sure it's not organic, not been treated with any pesticides, and go ahead and make it yourself. I think our children and our animals respond well from things that we've made. But anyway, yeah, that's the journey. Really, it was nothing unusual. What was really striking was this poor horse. The vet had tried everything. Steroids were not working, and it's the same with psoriasis and eczema. Once steroids stop working, it's like, where do you go from there? Really? But what you're doing with more natural products is you're stopping that cycle of more and more chemicals, stronger and stronger steroids, and just bringing it back to a more gentle approach. And obviously you've got to use all those other barriers and all those other care ideas that you mentioned, but This is just a really simple one to make an impact quickly, but you use it sparingly but regularly over time, and it will even the horses with the most the longest term conditions. There's a woman whose horse has been trying it in Torbay, and her horse has had sweet itch for years, and it is helping. I mean, for some horses that have had it for years, it'll be a long uphill struggle, and they may never recover from it. But this product will calm the skin down and will alleviate the condition.
Yeah, it is. Sweet itch is a real battle, isn't it? Because, you know, as hard as any owner can try to control it, it does get worse every year. So you have to up your ante every year with whatever lotions and potions and creams and remedies you might be using. And as you mentioned, steroids, you know, I've been on them in my lifetime. Poor little Wilson, the pony's been on steroids, and they are a strong medication. It's something that we don't want to be on. We don't want our animals on steroids for a prolonged period of time. So they're very harsh treatment. So anything natural, you know, is such a welcome sort of remedy in my eyes as an owner and as a human as well. And Jane, tell us, you mentioned that when you stumbled across the lovely Icelandic pony in need, you were already into your herbal medicine. How did you get into something like that?
Well, the idea of herbal medicine has always been with me. In the northwest of England, there's, herbal medicine is, of course, what we've all done forever. Animals will, in nature, we would have done in nature, sought out and found plants which help us. I mean, we've got, I've got some land here, and I've got a few thousand trees, and one species of tree that I've planted is Scots pine, and deer will jump high fences to get into the Scots pine just to rub their skin against it because it helps with tick bites. So we, as sentient beings, we know instinctively about plants. And then herbal medicine we've practiced as a species for a long time. In the northwest of England, the tradition of using plants for medicines never went away. So in a lot of other parts of the country, we lost the whole idea of herbal medicines. But in the northwest of England, for all sorts of socio-economic reasons, it never went away. And in my 20s, I mean, I'm 64 now, and in my 20s, I worked in a herbal medicine shop. So shops are still going that have been going for over 100 years. So it never went away. My great-grandmother was a herbalist, just a kind of a domestic street herbalist. You know, this was urban northwest, a post-industrial. It wasn't in the middle of nowhere in a beautiful surroundings. You know, she was just known to be the one who went to that shop that sells herbs. My nan, on the other hand, was around at the beginning of the NHS and thought what her mum was doing was all a load of rubbish, and we need to just put our faith into doctors. But by the time it got to my mum bringing me up, she just thought, well, that's what my nan, my mum didn't have any opinion one way or the other. You know, you go to the GP or you can go and get herbs, and there's a role for both. I think I know that there's a lot of evidence about people feeling disempowered with their own health now and not realising that, you can go to the chemist, but even over-the-counter things, you can learn yourself about day-to-day aches and pains that you can treat yourself and treat your children with. So, yeah, in my 20s, I thought, I was a young mom. I just thought, well, I'll have a look at this and see what all this herbal medicine is about. I did a very basic 1-year introductory course with the National Institute of Medical Herbalists. I then realised that I wasn't going to be in a position to be able to afford to do the 4-year course. And so I chose a route into learning that was available to me, and that's when I did the plant biology course followed by the ethnobiology. So it was my interest in herbal medicine that led me to get the higher education I did. And then I did ethnobotanical research, both during my first degree amongst Welsh-speaking women, elderly Welsh-speaking women on Anglesey, who were kind enough, in Welsh, I had to get it translated, kind enough to share what they remembered about using plants for medicines. And then between one degree and the next, I was lucky enough to get a grant to go to, my daughter and I, to go to South America. And so I did some research with women from the high Andes who still use plants for medicines there, but their younger generation were spending like a month's wages on Western medicine. And so the government was saying, look, we've got our own indigenous medicine, which could be saving you a lot of money for coughs and colds and long-term conditions, which is where this sort of idea about the oil comes in. It's a long-term condition, sweet itch. So, but anyway, so yeah, I've never lost that interest. And then finally sold my house, bought a field, making a long story very short, and planted all my trees and grow organic herbs, and it's a nice life. And it's a social enterprise. What I'm running here is Common Flora. It's a social enterprise. There's 3 women directors, and we're, like I said, certified organic. And so we make an income through running social services for very vulnerable people. But we also are aspiring to raise enough money not to have to get grant aid by selling products that we make here. And so our first product out of the paddock is this equine skin oil. We've got other product ideas, but the equine skin oil is on our website for sale now.
And Jane, you've got to tell us, you were interested and qualified in all things herbal medicine. You gathered all of this research into what other cultures were doing and how it's been used over the years. Why horses and why skin conditions first, when you could have created any medicine first?
I think because of that living example, that living recent example. I mean, there were other things that I make on a regular basis and which get distributed on a regular basis. But and there are certainly other things in the pipeline that we'll be doing. But from a business point of view, you've got to start somewhere. And the equine skin oil, I'm living in an area where there's a lot of horses. South Devon, there's an awful lot of horses. Even little villages have their own annual horse show. I live in a village. There's only a few hundred people, and we have a Ditford horse show. So there's a lot of horses around here. So it made sense from that point of view. But the next product is going to be really different. And so we're doing like a market test to see what these 2 markets will sell. So it was a business decision, but based on a lot of long-term evidence, both personally and on research terms. So the product works. That's the key. I knew the product works, and I know that the next product that we're going to sell is a plant food for house plants. But there's equine skin oil. There's a lot of horses out there who could benefit. I mean, there are a lot of products out there, obviously, but the woman who owned Profi just said, Jane, there's a lot of people could benefit from this. A lot of horses could. So that's the stage that we're at, trying to reach as many horses as possible, really. So we've given away an awful lot of product to our local, as I said, the local Devon Donkey Sanctuary and other places where there's rescue equines. I've got a neighbour around the corner who rescues donkeys privately and independently here. So we've given an awful lot of away, but there seems to be an awful lot of horses with skin conditions. So hopefully.
Well, tell us about some of those, Jane, as well, because obviously sweet itch is something very close to my own heart.
Yeah.
But what else can our horses suffer with, and what else can make our horses itchy?
Well, I mean, lots of environmental conditions can make us and our horses itch. So environmental, but also things that they're eating, and their behaviour. If they're upset about things, it can, you mentioned earlier the autoimmune system is responsible for all sorts of weird and wonderful reactions to conditions that we might find ourselves in, us and our horses. We're all mammals. It's very, very similar. We've all got similar brains, similar skin, similar conditions, similar immune systems. And so from the physical, external, environmental effects, which of course we can do a lot about as owners, right through to sort of stressy and highly strung and dare I say it, bred in a certain way. I know that there's a retired racehorse that's that I've given the oil to, and so he's just always been highly strung, and so the owner there thinks that he's just really nervous, and so I'm not sure that one is that particular example is diagnosed with sweet itch, but it's almost like severe chronic sweet itch is one end of a wide spectrum, right through to much milder acute conditions which could come and go. And because of the general nature of marigold and comfrey, you could just use it for a short while, or you could use it long term. And as I said, you could make your own. If you grow your marigold and your comfrey, experiment yourself. Just try those two plants and see how you get on.
What top tips have you got for horse owners who want to use herbs and try a bit of herbal medicine but are too nervous, a bit like me, thinking we'll do something wrong, I'm not qualified in any way?
No.
What can we do and try?
Well, I'm not qualified as a vet and I'm not a qualified herbalist. So that's the top caveat really that I need to put in there. So if in doubt, check with your vet or a qualified herbalist. But I see no reason why you can't try certain plants in their feed, because both marigold and you wouldn't want to give your animals these plants in large quantities for like months and months and months. We're just talking try things out in their feed. I would recommend that you dry them. I mean, you could try them fresh, but obviously if you dry them, then you've got them all through winter. Try them fresh to start with, and then if you see a difference, then you'll know that you're onto something. And I would say use the same information as you get from a standard herb book for human beings, and there's huge numbers of different herbal remedy books out there. I always recommend that you have at least 3 reference points. Don't just use one distant website. Use websites that are local to the UK, that are respected. Get some books. If you're interested, get some books, and cross-reference over 2 or 3 books or reference points, and then try it. What I would say is, of course, horses are much, much bigger mammals than us. So you're going to need to up the quantity compared to what you're giving giving yourself or your children. Obviously, if you're treating your children, that's a different thing. But try it and see. I mean, in terms of skin herbs, there's quite a few others as well. But the comfrey and marigold are my go-to herbs for skin conditions.
And what is it they do, Jane? The marigold you mentioned and the comfrey.
Yeah.
How do they benefit the horses?
Well, as I said, the marigold is very soothing. It you know, when your skin's hot and inflamed and you put something cold on it, you instantly feel the benefit. The marigold is just a really, really soothing plant. I don't know what the active constituents are in marigold, I'm afraid, but try it yourself. You can get pure marigold, pure calendula creams, and just really, really soothing, really well known for those impacts. And then comfrey, comfrey just will heal, not on contact, but really, really quickly. So I discovered comfrey when my daughter was tiny, and any cuts or bruises, her skin was young, but it would heal incredibly quickly with comfrey. So it's the collagen in the comfrey that is the active constituent. And as I said, known as knit bone. And as I said, we're going back hundreds of years. So choose reference books that are well recognised and go back a long way, and reference, historical uses. And you won't go and have a few different books to reference, and you won't go far wrong.
And you're talking to us from your barn on the land in which you live. Yeah. So you're very close to nature and the plants that you're growing. Tell us how you got to this point, Jane, and your management systems on the land.
I got to the age of 50 and was in a really well-paid job, but it wasn't using my botany or my anthropology. And my girl had grown up and left home, and I was rattling around in a 3-bedroomed house, and I'm no housewife. So I just thought, well, I've got to change this. And so I devised a plan. I was lucky enough to see an escape route. And first of all, I rented out my house and lived in a caravan, and realised that actually I really like living in smaller spaces. And then that led to me thinking, oh, well, maybe I could try this. And then that led me to so it was a bit of what you could call an evolutionary idea. Like, it took one step after another. But eventually I thought, well, I could sell the house and buy some land. And I got in there just before COVID, so very lucky. Got in there before COVID and bought the land before the prices all went ridiculous. But I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to plant trees and I wanted to grow herbs. So in terms of management systems, I did a lot of research, and I went and visited lots of sites and found out how other places worked. And of course, with a biology degree, I knew plant biology. I knew how ecology works, and I knew that whatever I did, I wanted to copy nature. And so I use natural systems here, as I said, certified organic, but using techniques called agroforestry and forest gardening and regenerative agriculture. All these things are bandied about nowadays in land use terms, but generally speaking, it's an integrated system. So I rarely make a decision or do any activities that have only got one purpose. So everything's got multiple reasons for doing things. And so now we've got, I use the royal way, of course. There are three women who are directors here, but I'm the one who's on site 24/7. So we've got the barn, which is a substantial space for office, for processing, for hosting. We run courses here. Upstairs is also for our processing and drying space. So up in the roof here, we've got racks and racks of nets for drying. We've also got a substantial tall polytunnel where we'll be growing exotic trees. And then we've also got a pond. And then half of the 5.5 acres is planted over to 2,000 trees of 11 different species. So I've got 115 of a variety of species, all mixed planting, all quite closely planted, because they're going to be kept in a junior shape and form. They'll be pruned quite early to keep them immature, so that you can access the limbs for different processing. Each one of the 11 species are useful to human beings in one way or another. And then that's a perimeter of half of the land. And then within that perimeter of woodland, there's a section that's 100 heritage apples, pears, plums and quinces. Then there's a section that's meadow, and then there's a section that's where 3 people grow their veg. And we've got lots of storage space, and we're disabled access, so we're ramped. We've got toilet and shower room that's wide enough for a wheelchair, plus we've got an off-road wheelchair. So we're very proud that we can offer services for people who are wheelchair bound for whatever reason. So we run a lot of services for young people with learning disabilities. And we've just this week got together all the raised beds. So we're hoping we can offer raised beds. And the local occupational therapists are saying that they think they've got clients who are veterans, ex-military, who might want to come and use them. But we're going to be putting up a yurt soon, which will be disabled access, so people who are wheelchair bound can have kind of peaceful, accessible holidays here. So big plans that'll take a long time to come to fruition. But yeah, the first thing that came out of this whole business plan was the equine skin oil. So, people who know a lot about the sort of other social stuff that we do, or who know a lot about the forest garden and the agroforestry, they say, what's your first product? Equine skin oil, don't you know? 30% forces, so bad. But to me, it's just an obvious thing, Equines have been with us a long time. They've been our friends and been by our side for a long time. And to see a condition that they suffer from so badly, that where we've got a product that can really help, I think it just seems it's a no-brainer, really. It just was the obvious thing to get out there if we can. But now it's sitting on the shelves of our local equine suppliers, and people don't know about it. So it's just, this podcast is trying to get the word out there, really, that it's there.
Wow. And not only helping horses through your oil, through your own recipe, but also helping vulnerable people. Why was it so important that you had these different branches to your business, that you'd help equines first and foremost, and then help vulnerable people in the community?
Well, I think it's good to be diverse, and it meets well with my skill set. So I've been involved with community activities for a long time, far more, and I've been a fundraiser, and I've set up organisations like this before. So that interest and those skills are what I come with, plus a passion to support vulnerable people, and that's kind of in my DNA. That's what I was brought up to do. So the commercial side is what I'm new to. I'm becoming a businesswoman, and having a social enterprise where you can have one foot in commercial activity and one foot in grant funded support, it just makes a lot of sense. So a real ethical driver, and I just love having the young people with learning disabilities. They've helped make the product. They've helped put the raised beds in. It's great to see doing things that really help people. When we first got the all-terrain wheelchair out, and this teenage girl was just beaming from ear to ear, because the wheelchair could go through all the tussocks and go into. I feel small, but it is really wild. And part of it will be for ecotherapy. And for this young woman who was like 13, 14, walking's a real struggle. A normal wheelchair she can get around, but getting across a real wild piece of ground at quite high speed with her friends pulling and pushing. It was fun, and it made everything feel like it made sense, really. So it's a win-win in all ways. So we're helping the environment, helping horses, obviously, eventually, hopefully, more and more, but also helping humans who need help. So it's just got a juggling act to make it work. But that's life, isn't it? Really, trying to make things work.
Well, it's really interesting, Jane. I think your journey is so inspiring on so many levels. First and foremost, we all listening to this podcast and watching this podcast have a love and passion for horses and a unique connection with horses. But also, we're all on our own journeys. And what's so inspiring is you thinking, I'm in this job, a career that I've been in for a lifetime, but actually, what do I want to do? What's going to set my soul on fire? What's going to drive me forwards in the next stage of life? And I think we've all felt that, whatever age we are in our careers, however long we've been in our jobs, we're always looking towards the next thing, aren't we? And people may be listeners may be enjoying this podcast thinking, I'm a small business owner, or I have a dream and I want to fulfill that. What advice would you have for them, Jane, who are a bit unsure and a bit worried about taking the leap?
Yes. Well, I think I've heard other people say it, and I really, really agree with this. Just don't give up. Have faith in yourself, because there'll be lots of detractors. There'll be lots of people laugh. There'll be lots of people who think she's mad. There'll be lots of people who think it's not possible, and then you just prove that it is. So have faith in your own ideas. If it makes sense to you, if it doesn't make sense to you, then change. You need to do some more thinking. But if it makes sense to you and you've done the maths and you think you can make it work, then put your head down like a Shire horse. Just go for it. Just go for it. We have Shire horses on our field every year. They come and cut the grass for us. One of the first things I bought was a cutter for our beautiful Shire horse friends to come and cut the grass, and they're just so gentle, such gentle giants. But anyway, yes, have determination. And a little bit of belligerence. That's not quite the right word. Stubbornness isn't quite the right word. But once you've got your idea, just, it has tried me, I think, more than anything else I've done, both financially, emotionally and physically. And I am definitely over a lot of hurdles, and I've had all sorts of grief and relationships and all sorts of things happen over the years. But the feeling of accomplishment now and just peace that I've finally got back. Because I actually was homeless for quite a few years. I was living it as lodgers in different places while I was trying to do this juggle, and I had lots of planning issues, so that was another story in itself. But now I'm here, and I'm a grandma, and I've got all these things going on, and young people come and help me in return for accommodation, and I sit and eat with these young people from all over the world, and I don't know, I just absolutely love life. Touch wood. And it's really good. It's absolutely worth it in the end. So don't give up. Have some faith in yourself, and go for it. What's the worst thing that can happen? That was something else another friend of mine said to me once. A very wise Quaker lady said, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? I said, well, I suppose the worst thing is I have to sell up. Well, that's you're there, so you sell up, and you've got another plan, you've got another journey you can go to. So take the plunge and know that there's other options. It doesn't. Oh, I also review the situation from time to time. Sometimes I look around and think, so what else could I be doing? And we all often, not always, but most of us are lucky enough to have options. And so check out the options from time to time and make sure you're still on the right track. I think that's probably...
Oh, great advice. Because also, how often do we all get sort of swept along by life, and then we suddenly think, oh gosh, X amount of years have gone by, or how many months have gone by, and I haven't reevaluated where I'm at. So yeah, I think we can all, whatever phase we're at, we can all take a lot from that, Jane. It sounds like you've created a real countryside hub. You've got shires cutting the grass, you've got volunteers coming in, you've got those who are vulnerable, who need access to the countryside, and a listening ear. That must be incredibly fulfilling for you, who's been through struggle as well.
Yeah, it is. It's very, very satisfying. We're not open to the public. We're not on the map. People can't just turn up, because we do work with such vulnerable people. That wouldn't work. But no, it's incredibly satisfying. Even on rainy days, it's really beautiful here. I get a lot of joy from it. It gives me more joy than any job I've ever had. The final push that got me to sort of having a wage, which I get from the sort of social side of stuff, was a really awful job. The last job I had was, off-site and being paid by somebody else. I was just like, I've got to get myself out of this situation. So I started furiously fundraising and writing bids and stuff. So, the inspiration comes from unlikely places. Sometimes it's the bad stuff that really pushes you through, not just an aspiration. But was it Oscar Wilde who said something like a line in the gutter and looking up to the stars? You've just got to make your plan and then, make it happen. Yeah.
Do you now walk amongst your trees, Jane, in your fields, and think, wow, how far I've come?
Yeah, I do, because they're really young, but they do. I don't know whether we'd be allowed for me to show you what I can see out of my window, but they're young, but they're healthy, and I know that that they're the future as well. Every year that goes by, there's more connection between the trees and their roots and the fungal systems underneath. I know that this little 5.5 acre patch is a haven for wildlife. There's a huge amounts of wildlife, because I'm obviously within ecology in my background. We're counting the species. We know that we've doubled wildlife numbers. Wow. So yeah, it gives me a huge amount of joy. So my learning there is around business development and just somehow reaching the people who need the products and the animals that need the products. Obviously, humans are the intermediary between the equine skin oil and the horses that need it. But every day's a school day, and oldie but goldie, and I really love it. I do. I love being on site, and when I'm in the big smoke, which I'm not very often, I feel a bit like Crocodile Dundee. I feel like, oh my God, I feel like I've got hick tattooed on my forehead. I'm very, very shocked. It always takes me by surprise being, well, even these days, just in a local city, never mind London. But I do, I pine for it. I really like being an awful lot. So it makes me feel very peaceful and calm being here.
And you've talked about, the benefits for you and for those who are vulnerable working on your land and getting out in nature and being close to the wildlife and the countryside. And as horse owners, I think that's something we all feel. We may not be landowners, but we rent a little patch of the countryside, or we have a little slice of green somewhere where we keep our horses. Why do you think it's important that we do get out into the land we rent, into the fields, into the woods, onto the hills, and look at the plants around us as horse owners? Because I know, it's something we could all do a lot more than we do. We get our feed bags, don't we? We put in handfuls and scoops of the feeds that we're given, and we're told what's in it. We add in our supplements, but what can we go and forage out on the land that we might find ourselves?
Well, there's a lot there. So in terms of forage, you can forage for just like basic plants, which are tonics. So horses will obviously eat grass, but horses have come from a far distant clime and would choose, if they were given a choice, would choose to eat all sorts of very wide-ranging plants. And so I think variety is an important thing. I think making sure that they eat, you can forage just for the basics that you know about, so your dandelion, docks, nettles, and put them in their feed. Very good nutrients, all-round nutrients. And so, variety is a really, really important thing. And I think it's odd for us to think, but actually our horses will know better than we do about what's good for them, and will have more of an innate instinct about the natural world around them. We are of the natural world. Our flesh and blood shouldn't be in concrete jungles. We survive. And some people thrive, I suppose, in the concrete jungle, but we breathe just like plants and all the other animals. Our flesh is from, things that are in nature, not from concrete and chemicals. So we are, the reason why we feel so connected is because we are of nature. So, and as I said, our beasts, our animals, our horses know that connection far better than we do. Like really young babies, they know it instinctively, they know it innately. So I would suggest let your horse do the choosing, and be led by that. If you can lead your horse around an area like a wild area of hedge or grassland where there might be a wide variety, like a herbal lay, if the farmer will let you, then you'll be able to spot yourself which species your horse is going for. And then you'll learn from your horse. But yeah, go, as I said, go if in doubt, and if there's something that you're particularly thinking about, then use books that you can find for humans, and then go with the research that you've done, just try and. It's hard though. I know that we all lead such busy lives, and the moments that we have with our equines are for some people a rare connection on a daily basis. It's their time, it's their me time often, for a lot of people. But just really enjoy that time you spend with your horse. Try not to be too rushed. Try to be calm around them. Try to be in tune with their breathing, with their pace, and try and watch and listen to what they are telling you. First and foremost, really.
Oh, and do you know what, Jane? I love what you were saying about our horses often know better than we do, because I've often been surprised when my horse has taken an unexpected stretch into a tree and snatched a load of leaves, pulled down half the branches, and I've thought, what's that tree? Yeah. What's that bush? And then I get out, I've got an app on my phone that will teach me, I can snap a photo of the plant and it will tell me what it is. Yeah. And then I quickly Google, is such and such poisonous to my horse, and then I calm down because it's not. Yes. And then it's fascinating to see what they've picked, what they've chosen, why they might need that in their body, what might be drawing them to eat that plant. Yeah. And learning from them. And that's such an interesting bonding activity actually that we can do that isn't lunging them or groundwork or pole work or riding that we might have got into our routines with. That's all great stuff, but actually it gives us another activity we can do that's hopefully relaxing for the both of us.
Relaxing for both of you, yeah. I mean, there have been scares over the years, like comfrey 30 years ago, they did some research with cattle and comfrey in Australia where they fed cattle comfrey and nothing else for a year. And sure enough, there were side effects. Well, go figure. And the same with ragwort. So ragwort is considered poisonous, and it would be. But the reason why it was, if you put a horse into a field with ragwort in it, 1 or 2 bits of ragwort, it isn't going to go and choose to eat it. what happened was ragwort ended up being cut into hay, and then the ragwort was fed to the horses. And of course, once it's in your hay and it's all mixed in, it's dried, your horse can't actually get through the good stuff from the bad stuff. So it affected them because we were feeding it to them. Let the horse be, if you can, try and find some natural space where you can just walk with your horse and see what the horse will eat. And then I think the apps are a fantastic idea. So Google, if you've got Google Lens, in my experience, is the best app. You get other apps as well, but Google is so wide now that it looks across everything, and instantly you can get a really good identification. And if in doubt, obviously stop them from eating it. But my understanding is animals generally, and horses particularly, are not daft when it comes to what they can eat in the wild. And they will choose things very often that are actually just what they need, maybe just on that day, if they're given permission, if you like, if they've got the capacity, the given capacity to do so.
And of course, if there's something wrong with our horses, as you mentioned, we always get a vet involved to get their expert opinion. Yeah. But also, why do you think, Jane, with that in mind, that as horse owners in this day and age, we should be being a bit more open-minded? Because I know that I, as an owner, am guilty that something goes wrong, or, there's a slight lameness, and I think, gosh, I've got to quickly ring the vet. And I've had a friend say to me before, Anna, trust your instincts, sometimes trust the instincts of our horses as well. Mm. How can we use plants in that way and sort of be more open-minded in our care of our equines?
Well, as I said, let the horse choose, and a bit like the sort of bigger advice on your life, have more confidence. I think when we get our confidence in our self-esteem knocked out of us through life circumstances very often, and yet once upon a time, we instinctively knew what was good for us, So, I mean, obviously that's not necessarily the case now in terms of plants in the wild, but we do have, our instinct is something that we can rely on in terms of life decisions. And if you're feeling, obviously, if you're going through trauma yourself, then maybe your instinct isn't necessarily as tip-top as it might be. But in terms of horse support and horse care, do your reading. Let collective minds help as well, because I know I certainly find a lot of support in different walks of life from social media, where you've got large numbers of people sharing information. That social media is good and bad, but it's best when you've got that hive mind going on and seeing what other people think. Reclaim your innate ability to look after yourself and your horse well. You're not going to do something intentionally wrong. You're going to do stuff that you believe to be right. And as you said, going straight to the vet for every little tiny thing isn't necessarily going to be good for the horse. Just like certainly with human care, and I know there's a lot of research on overuse of GPs, and that's of course a free service for us in the UK. But people going to the GP, the sore finger syndrome, when actually we can use our own. It's instinct, but it's also common sense and knowledge. We've got a lot of innate common sense. So if you're doubting what you think you should do, then seek advice or go to the bigger communities. And obviously, like we've said, go and see your vet if you're in any way seriously doubting things, but have more faith in your animal and your ability to look after your animal, I would say. They're a wonderful, wonderful species and have been with us so long, walked by our side, fought and died for us, and worked themselves to death for us. Donkeys especially, I know, will do. So just have faith in yourself and your animals a bit more, and try not necessarily to go with the latest trends and fashions. If you've tried something and it works, then stick with that. Stick with what you know.
And you mentioned our horses through the years working for us, fighting for us. And even now, some of our horses have jobs if they compete or if they're jumping or if they're hacking. They might have a job or a role. They might drive for us. So actually giving them the opportunity to do some of these activities you've mentioned, like little foraging walks with their owners, is actually a lovely sort of mental well-being activity for them, to give them a break, to give them some time off and actually help stimulate them in another way.
Yes, and especially if you have only got limited access to the one paddock, it can be not sterile, but it can be a very bland environment for what is actually an intelligent animal. So if you can take a walk on the wild side with them, somewhere safe, and somewhere where they're going to feel safe, then I think it's a good idea. I mean, I'm lucky enough to live on we do get horses going by here at the very quiet lanes, obviously people riding their horses going by. I need to ask them actually if they ever stop and let the horses munch on things, but just idling along rather than, if they're working really hard for you, then having an idle rather than putting them through a set exercise routine, I think would be good for you and them, really.
I think we could all do with a bit more idling, couldn't we, sometimes?
We could. There's a lot to be said.
I'm thinking, I feel quite relaxed now thinking about going for a little meander through the meadows.
Yeah.
Oh, Jane, do you know what? I've been so inspired by some of the activities you've suggested and the power of plants that you've explained to us in so many more ways than just the physical side. Before you go, what is next on your beautiful farm? You've sort of hinted at the fact you're going to be looking at houseplants. You're already helping horses. What else is on your list for the plants and the herbs that you're growing?
Yes, well, we've got a few ideas in the making for 2025, 26. We're thinking about, rather than making products, we're thinking about making new products that might help people and animals. So syrups and sweets that are concentrating on certain areas. So syrups and sweets that might help you relax, or that might boost your energy, or that might be for skin conditions or stuff like that. But in the medium to long term, I'd like to have 2 donkeys here. Yes, I know. Oh, I'd love it. I've just got to make it all work. I've just got to keep. There's so many plates spinning that whatever comes here will have to earn its keep, basically. So we're working on a certain area being for 2 donkeys, and then donkeys like to work. And so we would have the donkeys helping us on site, because I've not mentioned we're a completely off-grid site.
Wow!
So we don't allow any vehicles on site. So at the moment it's human power going up and down and round. Having a couple of donkeys that might help on site. But I mean,
so they'll be cutting the grass, they'll be ploughing the land and driving, will they?
They'll be. You can get packs, so they'll come from South America, but you can get packs for them to carry. It is, horses love to work for us. Equines love to work for us. So that's a sort of medium-term plan, that we would have a couple of donkeys that would work on the site for us, just helping us maintain the site, seeing the tools, carrying
the tools.
Yeah, that's right, carrying the tools, but also this pruning method I was telling you about. In a few years' time, it's not going to be twigs anymore. It's going to be much heavier logs and things. And so, having, my friend who's got these 2 shires, Dartmoor logging horses, they log for their living through the winter. through the summer they're cutting people's grass using my cutter. So having horses on site which help us because of the work they're doing, but also help us as humans because they're just so lovely to have around. Having equines on site, they're just so lovely. They teach us so much, and the what could you say? The rhythm of your day of looking after horses. It's a great rhythm to get into. It's like not a mantra, but it's a great habit to have your horses to look after, and it's part of your day to day. It can improve. I actually believe it can really improve your well-being. I mean, I don't. It's not an area of expertise, but I think the day-to-day rhythm of looking after your horses, I think, is something that we could all do with here. So it's
100%. I know. If I'm not feeling well, or if I'm feeling tired and exhausted, if I'm feeling stressed, I know that twice a day I'm going out to sort my herd of rescue horses. I go with my mum, so it's a social thing. We have quiet time with the horses, and it gets you out in all weathers. It gets you using your body, poo picking, lugging the water, sorting the hay. I'm moving my body when actually, if I didn't have the horses, I might choose to stay sedentary on the sofa, have a lie-in, and actually that doesn't help your mental or physical health. Yeah. It forces you out the door, which I've always said keeps me going through all aspects of the challenges of life.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. That physically, because we're mammals, we've got the same basic skeleton as our equines. We need to keep fit, they need to keep fit. We need to, as I've got older, I've understood and seen the research about weight-bearing exercises. Well, lugging stuff around for your horses is definitely weight-bearing exercise, and that's actually better for staving off the diseases of older life, like dementia and mental capacity loss. The research now is it's not your mind games, it's physical health that actually helps you maintain your well-being into old age. And so, like I say, I'm 64 now. The idea of going through into a much older life, touch wood, with equines around me, as I said, I need to have a good justification. And as I said, there's got to be at least two reasons for doing things here. So it's always been in the business plan that I would have some equines here, and I think for me at least it's got to be at least two, so they can keep each other company, but also.
And why donkeys as well, Jane?
Why? Well,
yeah, rather than horses or ponies. What was the thinking behind donkeys?
I might need to do more research on this yet, but my understanding, it's just I've got more experience with donkeys for a start off, and so that is kind of, I guess that's really why. Just because, but I know that they can be sometimes more difficult to maintain because, of course, they don't want grass to be on. So I'd have to have a paddock where there isn't grass to make sure their feet stay healthy. So I've not 100% come down into the idea of donkeys just yet. But as I said, we work a lot with vulnerable people, and the whole idea of spending time with these big, beautiful, gentle beasts, who obviously, if you get round the back of them, you've got to be careful. But the whole idea of grooming, which is such a mutually beneficial thing, grooming your equine, they clearly love it, and to just the routine of grooming and the checking their hooves and looking after their faces and their ears and their, it's all really, really good stuff for improving our sense of well-being, and help you distract you from any stuff that's going on outside. So when you do go back to sort of outdoor mainstream life, you've got a more refreshed, you've got a chance to think about it. But there's a lot of evidence now about building empathy, and a lot of Well, I don't want to say a lot of younger people because I think we come down on younger people, but a lot of people just don't know how valuable empathy can be. It's been found to be a really important contribution to our own well-being if we can develop empathy and if we can develop a love for things. And as mammals, we do develop love for things. You know, we love our children, and that's what makes us protect our children because we love them. So if we can grow to love animals, mammals, equines, in an environment in the natural world where we're also looking at the birds, looking at the insects, learning about plants, then it becomes part of climate change solution. You know, it's sort of helping us to, if we can improve people's love of animals and equines, of course, then we're also helping them understand the natural world and why we need to protect it and care for it more. I know that's a long way away from the world of jumping and showing horses, but it's on a spectrum. If you're learning as a child to look after your horse, then you're learning empathy and you're learning about the mindset of another individual creature. And I think that's really important for people of all ages, really.
And Jane, it must feel like such a full moment for you, because throughout your life you've had horses at arm's length, just out of reach, but now you'll have your own equines on your own farm.
Yes.
Will it feel like a momentous moment for you?
Absolutely. It'll be a huge change. But I'm starting, I have looked after animals a lot, like I've said, and I've had animals in my life on and off in different circumstances, but I've started with a little puppy. So I've now got a dog that's on site with me. She's completely bonkers. And so
all the best ones are.
So just slowly introducing other non-human animals onto the site. Obviously, we've got thousands and thousands of different kinds of animals already with the pollinators, and we've got a beehive, and we've got deer and hare and owls, all sorts of birds come to visit, and butterflies and things. So all sorts of animals. Some of them more welcome than others. But yeah, the day that we get equines will be a big day. I haven't decided yet. It could be that we go for horses just for very practical reasons, because of the difficulty of maintaining good health in donkeys' hooves. But we'll see. I'm looking forward to that day, though.
Well, good luck, Jane. We're behind you, and I can't wait to find out and watch your progress and see what products you create next. Watch as the equines join your farm. For those who want to follow your journey as well, where can they find you online?
Oh, well, we've got Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and we've even got TikTok. And so we're just Common Flora. I ought to have this. So, if you search... If you search for Common Flora, then let me just get sorry, I ought to have had this ready.
That's all right.
But yes, the tags are Instagram is Common Flora Days, then Twitter is Common Flora, Facebook is Common Flora. Obviously, if I Google Common Flora, our website comes up. But I guess if you and Common Flora on its own won't necessarily bring up our website, because it'll bring up all the other flora, all the common flora that there is. But I guess if you put Common Flora Devon, or if you put Common Flora Jane, you could look for in Google. But our website,
and it will come up through your social media platforms as well, won't
social media, yeah. But yeah, commonflora.co.uk is our website.
Jane, it's been fascinating delving into your world. Thank you so much for letting us in.
You're welcome. It's been really, really lovely to speak with you, Anna, and I'm very grateful. And good luck to all the horse owners, and especially the horses with sweet itch.
Thank you so much for listening to and watching Curious Equestrian. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube so that you don't miss an episode and all that's coming your way, or you can subscribe to us on whatever podcast platform you listen. If you could leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, that would really help us to find lots more lovely listeners. And you can also follow us on Instagram at Curious Equestrian Podcast. We'll see you next time.